All right, we're back. Just yesterday, there was the big win. USA, USA. And you know what? Perfectly timed as we head into July 4th weekend. So the four of us are here. We're going to kick things off a little different. A little 4th of July trivia, interop trivia. So get ready. I
Trivia
have some
feels like a stretch, but let's.
so I have some questions prepped for you all that combine our two favorite things right now, America and interop. So, first one. Which interoperability standard is most American?
Oh,
I think our patriotism could have been displayed a little bit better here. I'm a little disappointed. I've got the red, white, and blue. Brendan's kind of got the red. At least you mentioned the USA, although I have not watched the World Cup at all, which I think is very American, actually, just to throw that out there. We're not a soccer
It's tough. It's like
nation.
balancing two of our favorite things, like winning on the one side and hating football on the other.
Meanwhile, I'm the real
Football.
soccer fan. Yeah, I'm the
Yes.
football fan here.
Yes,
Guys, the most
definitely.
American interoperability standard, this is so easy. It's facts.
oh,
Oh,
That's a.
oh. That's a good one.
It's ubiquitous,
You
and they know everyone has it. It's a
are
good. It's a
manifest
good.
destiny, get the wagon and just head west with your facts.
Okay, that's a good
I
candidate.
feel, I feel like facts and its ubiquity, like, I feel like that's like an empire, like, the Roman Empire, or maybe like even England when they had so much of the world. I don't know if US and its, isolation versus the entire
Oh, so
rest of the world makes
250 years
sense.
is young.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it kind of is compared to the world, right?
Well, Ryan, what do you got? What do you got? What standard do you think
I
is
think
most
maybe
American?
CCDA. I don't know if I'm like biased because I was on the Care Everywhere team, but CCDA, it's like just throw it all in there. You got everything covered, all your bases covered, all 50 states, you'll find
works.
something. Exactly,
Yeah.
It's a mix. It's the melting pot. It's the melting pot of standards. Is what you're.
exactly. It's
Okay.
it's got the most diversity. It's also sometimes the loudest and most difficult to deal with, which I think as Americans go abroad, that's brought up sometimes. That would be what I'd throw in the ring, but I'd love to hear the others.
There are big payloads. Like those are big payloads and like a
And we're big
big,
boys.
yeah.
Very American as well.
Yeah. Okay,
I
Bryce, what do you got?
I need to disagree with that. I've got this amazing, Brendan, I think, posted about this amazing swag, a little Lego server from the Fire Dev Days conference. And let me remind you, HL7 International and all of these standards say, HL7 CDA and HL7 International Standards. So I'm going to push back here, especially Fire, like we've got, Australian Graham Grieve leading the charge there, all due respect to him. And I'm trying to decide between X12, which I hate, but I think it's statutorily required. So, like, Capitol Hill has talked about X12 in the past, or
Also focus on the money. So you could use
exactly,
that for the argument.
or the National Council for Prescription Drug Programs, NCPDP.
I thought you were going to say NCPDP. I
So
was
I don't know
literally
much about
Googling to
either,
see whether or not it has any international adoption before you even said it.
but yeah.
I'll play jury here or judge, I guess, and I gotta say that it's X12, baby. Show me the money. And so, yeah, I had X12 written down. I think HL7 DFT, great choice. Also money, but international in flavor. X12, we do X12. Everyone else does GS1. We do our own thing. And it's pretty ubiquitous. So Price, I think this one goes to you. Great candidates. Great candidates. All right, next question. This one's a little bit more, that was big and strategic. This one's more tactical. If a doctor was prescribing a hot dog, what would be the appropriate data format?
Oh, service request, medication request, ORM, NCPD. The first thing I think of when you order a hot dog, I'll start here because you all started on the last one, is like, what do you want on it? Especially if you're ordering from like a real hot dog kind of person who's like, what do you want on it? You don't just get a hot dog and then put ketchup on it. What do you want on it, right? It's like feels very New York. Maybe there's like a clinical decision support that triggers a smart app window where you get a bunch of like ask upon order entry questions, and it's like, do you want ketchup, mustard, sport peppers. That's what I'm picturing right here. And then,
You're thinking of the epic build for a hot dog order.
I'm thinking about this. And then, yeah, fax it to the hot dog guy, I guess.
Okay. We got some answers. Brad, Ryan, any hot dog guesses?
I mean, I'm actively Googling, which is exactly what you want to do here.
That is cheating. You get to go last. I'm not gonna let you color and flavor the things
Wait,
with Dr. Google over here. Brian, you go next before we hear the answer of the internet.
Can you
I don't have it. I want to
re-ask?
ask you guys a question.
Okay.
Well, we'll let you go, Brad.
Okay, so if I'm inpatient, how does the kitchen get, is there
See, you're
standards for this?
you're blowing it. You're ruining it.
Oh, okay.
You're ruining it. That's Ryan. You get to go.
Well, now how do I blank that from my mind? Because actually,
Listen,
my
the
wife's
answer,
a nurse.
it's a custom fire extension. You know, we got to be able to put our ketchup and our relish on it if we need it, or for you sickos out there, your mayo dogs.
So when you took tests in high school, Brad, were you the guy on your like T89 or whatever that you had the program to cheat? Because like that's kind of what you just did
For
here.
sure. I wasn't even trying to, I was just generally interested. Do orders go through the EHR, like food orders? How does that
Okay.
happen?
All right. So I was going to ask the question: is a hot dog a medication or a procedure? Which I thought was was fun. So diet orders do exist. There is an HL7v2 interface for diet orders. That is the standard is ORM, but there's an OMD message actually defined in the standard. So that's what's used. And then in Fire, there is a nutrition order, I believe, very specifically. So
This is education corner.
yeah, did you
Listen,
know?
if we're really going to educate, though, can I say how this actually happens? That's not via an interface standard. It's doctor gets the request from the patient. Brad, you brought up inpatient. So my wife's a nurse. Doctor would come up to her and say, room 3 wants a hot dog. I don't know what the hell to do with that. Can they, do you want to place an order for them? There's a side web order panel that they can bring a menu in to the room and let them order. And it's all outside of those standards. That's, I think, the reality of it.
I am stretching. So a diet order is like, okay, this person needs to have this many calories, and that will flow over to
That makes sense.
certain
Low
systems.
sodium,
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. Yeah, that makes sense.
But
Which a hot dog would not meet.
I'm the student who would stretch the truth when I was submitting my essay so I could get an A. So we have the cheater and Brad. We have the guy who likes to change
Hot
the
dog is a
definitions.
medication. I think I can defend this stance. The hot dog is a medication. It's clearly addressing, physical need, and we're going to solve it through oral medication.
Do you believe that sandwiches is a hot dog a sandwich, and thus sandwiches are also medications?
All right, this podcast is canceled.
Price.
So I was just gonna say, I'm curious if some sort of like clinical data validation rule would fail if you made a fire query and saw that your patient had eaten 70.5 hot dogs, because it's very possible if you were Joey Chestnut, that's what you would be doing in just a few days, maybe upwards of 70 hot dogs. So make sure you
Could
get
be
the
in your
units
care plan.
right. You got to get the units right. Maybe there are like ancillary medications like a schnat ton of water that you drink as you're shoving hot dogs down your mouth. It's going to be very important in a few days.
As part of the podcast show notes, we'll put together fire resources that represent the hot dog care plan so that viewers can import that into their CMS health tech ecosystem app of choice and run with it. So have a great 4th of July with your hot dog care plan. The last question I had, I'm going to name some ICD-10 codes, and you're going to tell me which 4th of July activity they relate to.
Love it.
So we have U39.XXXA, H91.9, and then a couple others that relate to this particular activity. So what activity do you think, what 4th of July adjacent activity could this be?
Has Jason Pierre-Paul ever had these on his?
You're on the right track.
I
That's
know
correct.
where we're going.
These are all related to discharge of firework, initial encounter. Next up, I have one other fun 4th of July ICD-10 code for you.
The AMA created these.
That's right. They are nothing if not comprehensive. So one that I think we should stay away from those ICD-10 codes this weekend. Instead, do I93.G2. This is something outdoors you might do with your friends and family, perhaps as you're instituting the care plan.
What? Say it again. The number?
This is 93.G2.
Lawn darts.
Two.
Excessive alcohol consumption.
That's a good one.
I was thinking it was going to be that. Or like
I think it's like
s'mores. but-
grilling and smoking food. Is that it?
Grilling and smoking food. Wow, Price. Oh my
Wait,
god.
what?
Oh, come on, Price.
I got the old struck by orca on me right now.
I was like, oh, he's
We're
just
all
Googling
cheaters.
his
What?
phone. That's awesome. Yeah, so grilling and chilling is actually an ICD-10 code, and I think people should pursue that one and not, or perhaps the other one that was just mentioned and not the Jason Pierre-Paul one. But that is the 4th of July segment to kick things off. Now we'll go into a bit of our regularly scheduled agenda. And so TEFCA had a fun wrinkle this past week when we saw a contract awarded to, out of the blue, to a non-RC entity. And so many people took this to mean that the recognized coordinated entity, the Square project, maybe they'd chosen somebody else. But no, actually, this was a new contract focused on the auditing of new entries to the network. Anyone have thoughts about this move by the Office of the National Coordinator, by what it means for TEFCA?
I would say, fortunately, there have been no odd contracts awarded in the last couple of years.
First of all, I guess I would say this is still very American. Talking about government contracts and capitalizing on government contracts, which this is a nice, $5 million contract or something like that.
It starts at 1.8 and then
Oh gosh.
then it goes upwards, I think.
I think it's a little bit crazy that they need someone separate to police all of these things. I understand that they're like tied up in actually writing the policy, and it's like it would be a lot of work to do all this auditing. But I guess I wish there was just like strong enough conviction and trust in the RCE to just be doing this on their own, because I imagine that they understand what abuse or fraud looks like in TEFCA a lot better than these external parties. But we'll see where it goes. Yeah, I'm interested to like learn more about what they're actually doing and on what cadence, and if they report out or anything like that.
One thing I'll note is the RC wasn't. I think that the RC didn't know about this. I think that they may have been surprised by this. I think that the ONC, Dr. Keene, Posnack, etc., were like, okay, we need to go and do this in response to January's letter from all those hospitals. Like 70 hospitals wrote and said, we need better auditing and security and stuff. And then Bob Watson, CEO of Health Gorilla, wrote something in and said, hey, we need an independent body to go and do auditing and stuff. And so you combine those, and both sides, if you will, at least of the Epic Health Gorilla case, are asking for a similar thing of this sort of an independent body to resolve things. And I think they said, okay, let's go and choose somebody. And they maybe went outside the usual
Health tech bubble.
Yeah, little bubble, the usual suspects, and said, hey, let's choose someone from GovCon land that comes in with no assumption, no biases. And so that's the positive spin on it all.
Part of the contract Health Gorilla is making and the service that they're offering is to do verification and make sure that they are all of their customers should be paying a fee to ensure that none of the other customers are going to erode their on-ramp. It's a failure of the networks finding a way to establish trust between parties. And I don't get the point of, if your on-ramp is not doing anything to police its network, if they're passing the cost back to the government, then why do we want to have on-ramps? Or the QHINs that are providing services, do we need 13 of them if it just means that it increases the complexity for auditing?
I mean, is your alternative a centralized service?
Yeah. I'm not saying it's the right decision. I'm just saying, if we're creating an auditing firm, or if there's an auditing function for independent services, isn't that more efficiently solved? Because I think we're going to pivot towards efficiency of government operations. Isn't that more efficiently solved with a centralized service provider?
Logic doesn't play here. You got to go off vibes. Going back to the theme of America, we're not built for big old centralized services. That's Europe. European countries are like, all right, we got the big server, use this. And we for 2 or 3 decades have gone in circles around that and said, no, 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 we can't possibly build the big old database and big old centralized service. But I think there's validity, right? There's validity of like, okay, like maybe we're contorting ourselves and all of our problems are derivative of a decentralized architecture, right? I don't know, Ryan, you have history in this space, right? With Care Everywhere and things like that. Do you have any thoughts?
This harks back to like, should it be a single payer system or universal healthcare as well, right? There's arguments that can be made either way. US is the only team in the World Cup that doesn't have that, right? So I think that might be the scope of this discussion. In a perfect world, it's nice to have competition amongst certain providers, on-ramp providers. It makes sense for Sequoia and the RCE to set forth certain rules. They set certain rules and regulations. They thought there would be some policing on their end, some policing amongst the actual participants. But now there's like a greater need since there's been an event that's come up, and it's nice to have an independent third party auditor for in some cases, but who's chosen for that is very important. And that's where I maybe have some concerns and skepticism. But it is very American, as we said, to have that government contract. Lockheed Martin and Palantir might have been taking a look at this, although for 1.8 billion, probably not.
1.8 million. Yeah. Yeah. Right. If it was a billion, we're indifferent. One thing that I thought was funny is like Bob Watson said, hey, we got to have this independent board like the SEC. Well, the SEC has 4,000 people and a budget of 1.8 billion or 1.3 billions of dollars. So we got the budget SEC perhaps.
That's quite low, I feel, like 1.8 for what's being asked of them.
Well, what was asked of them? Like, do we know exactly what tasks they're going to be executing?
We have a hint. The hint's gone, unfortunately, but the group that won is Alliance Global Tech. They're a DC contracting firm. They're a prime contractor. They're on a lot of these vehicles. They posted a site that said, here's our TEFCA support and the auditing we're doing and things like that. And then they pulled it, as outlets start to report on that, because I think the ONC wasn't ready for them to fully release that plan. But it alluded to them using AI and other tools to efficiently monitor and audit and detect, people that are breaking TEFCA's rules that were either in terms of fraud, right? The groups that are fraudulently using the networks and claiming treatment and then selling patient data without patient consent or something, or information blocking, which is kind of interesting. Like, how are they going to be able to? I don't think their focus necessarily can be on information blocking, but the announcement from the ONC said both, right? I think it's to signal, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to go after people doing fraud because we hate fraud. I think everyone knows at this point that the Trump admin hates fraud of all kinds. And that, well, maybe not grift, but fraud. but
Like all kinds?
but the on the other side, information blocking, that they're going to go after information blockers and things like that. So let's take a look real quick. We haven't done this before, but I'm going to try and show Alliance Global Tech for the audience. And so something that bummed me out a bit was they had a website that was very interesting, that was like very patriotic, I would say. And then they went to this like AI generated aesthetic, which there's some tells here in terms of this little sliver thing, and I don't know, there's something just like the M dash in writing. You can sort of look at a website now and be like, man, you slapped this together a little bit with Claude Code. But look at their old website, which is here, like 4th of July ready, and just beautiful,
Mm.
just
Oh, look at that.
beautiful stock photos. Just
It's a great fighter jet. That would be really
There's
useful.
Lockheed Martin right there.
yeah. So I'm just bummed, extremely bummed that they went away from that aesthetic on our 250th birthday, like 2000s era, 1990 era, HTML, big flag, and then went to just AI sloppiness. And so, but aside from that, they are a firm that's been around. They claim having worked with the CMS. Their history of contracts is a little sparse, at least as a prime, right? Like they've sold some hardware to people. They have a few things with the Navy and things like that. But this is by far the largest contract that we can see out there. And so, even though the role of an independent auditor, we're balancing around, it sounds like it may be good. The question, I think you said this, Ryan, is like, is this the right group to do it?
Maybe part of my frustration is that I feel like the Sequoia project has had thousands of willing, good Samaritans call in or talk to them about what it feels like this doctor doesn't exist, or it feels like this doctor is using their credentials to make these queries, and they've just done nothing about a lot of that. And now all of a sudden I'm like, this is what you slapped together. So that's my frustration. Hopefully I'm wrong. And a year from now we see like really exciting drama about all the fraud that this company has found for the United States citizens, and preventing leakages of their healthcare data outside of whatever. But I'm not very excited about it for now. So
Brad, Ryan,
I feel the same way.
I don't know. Feels like a market failure and could open up a very large can of worms. The existence of a bunch of different on-ramps and the continued proliferation of fraud just makes me feel like the space has an incredible amount that they could be investing in. And if they do believe in competition, creating this like internal audit board, fine. Taxpayers can pay $1.8 million for it, but police your own network and make that a differentiator.
I think it's tough. I think it's tough insofar as so many people involved in Sequoia maybe worked at EHRs before, worked at on-ramps before, and leave Sequoia and go to these companies. And so, I think there's validity to like, impartiality, right?
I
But
mean,
it does come at the cost of expertise. And right, there's a trade-off there that maybe this is right, but time will tell. I think at least I take it positively because I'm pretty optimistic in general, but like at least they're doing something, right? Is it at least they're saying, hey, we're doing something, we're taking a shot on goal, maybe we're wrong and we have to revisit it.
I
But
mean, when the OIG starts their information blocking, when we learn about what's happening there, I think that'll be encouraging because right now we have courts that are handling the policing.
There's
Would
definitely
this
similarities between the two.
would this independent body have found instances of fraud earlier by throwing some AI in there? Like maybe. And what's the restitution? I guess we have to figure it out. But I think action on the OIG side will make something like this look better. Inaction on the OIG side makes this look like somebody can build a $1.8 million swimming pool in their backyard.
well, it's a good point of, we got court cases pending. We've got the OIG and the government getting together to do some information blocking action. They've alluded to that in September last year, I think. Ryan, you maybe went in person to that DC event, or Price, or both of you.
I both went.
we all did. Everyone
You
but
guys
you.
all were there.
That's right.
That's what we
Actually,
met.
yeah, that's what
I was on
that's what
paternity
I meant,
leave.
right?
That's
Yeah.
true. But I was on paternity leave, so I don't know. But so it's almost been a year, coming up in a year. But that's pending. What do we think as we head into the second half of the year? Do we see information blocking enforcement by the end of the year? Does Polymarket say yes or no?
Well, let's define enforcement. Like,
Have at it.
well,
Is it an
I
actual
would be
penalty enactment?
right. I would be floored if there's any sort of resolution, but like, will we see action by the government? I would also be floored if we don't see some sort of action. The poly market question is what is the market cap of the first group of vendors that receive information blocking notices?
I mean, I think it's end of summer. I think by end of summer we see something. I don't know if it's information blocking investigation, if it's enforcement, if it's DOJ or FTC action, but I think something's coming, and I think it's epic. I mean, right? Like who else are they going to wield? Like, I mean, like eClinical Works or something, but like realistically,
They could go down market at somebody like I mean, I don't want to just start naming companies and pretending like we know they're information blocking, but if they choose to start going after companies that have like sub-$100 million market caps because it's easier to take action, I won't be as excited.
that's part of it. I think there's actually more egregious information blocking behaviors for some rando long tail EHRs whose fire servers don't even work or something than Epic, which like like you're trying to like push a condition into Epic or do HCC coding or other things. There's like 17 options. You're overwhelmed. You don't know which one to use. Like there's a whole set of different problems there that I think there's more egregious behaviors elsewhere that really people are just like, no, we have a scribe, you can't connect, which is more common down market. But if the goal is to please a certain constituency, going after
Yeah.
those probably won't please them. Going after Epic will. And so I cynically think that probably that's where we would see action first. And
Well, another thing to note there is like the concept of information blocking was written to empower patients, but I see it as like a market equalizer, right? It's like a prevention tool for like vendor lock-in, software lock-in, data, you know, like being stuck just because certain companies, private companies, public companies, whatever, know that the data that they manage is important. And the idea that, information blocking as like a law is so unique to electronic health records and car, sales tools in Arizona or something, as Brendan always points out. That to me says like, yes, if we're going to balance the market, then we should be applying more scrutiny with regards to information blocking towards, market participants who are saturating and overwhelming competition in such a way that it prevents like new entrants and new technology. So in that sense, again, I guess I completely agree with everyone on this call that like Epic might be the most common committer of info blocking because people ask to connect with them 1,000 times a day, and one person asks to connect with EMDS every year or something. But there's certainly the furthest from actually like breaking the law, in my opinion, as it's written. It's just like it's actually useful to balance the market when you use it on a company as big as Epic or a company as big as Oracle.
well, I push back on that. I agree with you in one sense, but in the other sense, like, get it done. If you like, get one enforcement done, and it's suddenly real. And so, with that prerogative, with that as the driver, you might choose a different target where the behavior is egregious and truly, truly provable. And then you can say, hey, this is what we'll do and what we've done, in the same way that like it took them a while to get like HIPAA enforcement in place and really prove it, and then it became real. I hear you that it's like the blast radius on doing it to Epic and like that thus positively influencing the market potentially. That there's truth to that, but if it takes you 5 years because they're legal muscle and because they're not
Yeah.
the most egregious, you like the positive benefits of behavioral change because of like the enforcement isn't the actual thing you need to happen for all 1,800 cases. That you just need proof points to go and use as leverage as a patient, as a third party application, as someone whose information's being blocked. So
So
I would push for, that's why if I was in the OIG or ONC, I would be chasing down one example.
couldn't well, I guess I don't know the legal aspects of this, but like couldn't they just say, "Oh, there's our first one, PCC," because it's already been proven in court? Like, or is that like double jeopardy? You can't, enforce something that's already been settled in a state, tort case. But I'm like, there's info blocking and it's public.
Yeah, how I imagine it playing out is actually as they go through these, it could lead to legal action and go to court.
Yeah,
And so if it's already been in court, like there's going to be,
that's fair.
consolidation and precedent and stuff. So yeah, and like to be clear, point click care, like the preliminary injunction gives a lot of confidence in like utilization of the pathway, but like a preliminary injunction is given when there's this acute harm that needs to be rectified as trials progress, right? Like if
Well, it's not even
RTMS,
over.
no, they're going towards trial and probably settlement. It looks like we saw some stuff in some updates this week that indicate strong pointers towards settlement. And so the preliminary injunction just found it highly likely of success on the merits
Mm.
that RTMS was raising. And then upon appeal, the appeals court also agreed with the logic of the
Mm-hmm.
preliminary injunction. And that solidified utilization of this pathway, but you still got to go and fight the merit. The facts-based endeavor of the trial needs to go all the way to see its course before someone's guilty. And so, all this to say is there's still a lot of question marks there, and because it's so far along, I think they would probably choose something new, because by and large, I can imagine whatever the processes are here that like people might sue the government in response to this. If you're an EHR vendor and decert is on the table, well, guess what? Like you're probably going to fight it because you're going to go out of business if you're decertified. So yeah, I think it will lead to more legal messiness. Do people just imagine it being like the ONC and OIG being like, yes, you're off the list? It's like, no. People are going to fight it because
Yeah.
it's their only it's a survival mechanism for many EHRs.
I have a
What else?
prediction.
I love working with y'all because like my thoughts on this have changed as we've gone from person to person. So I think enforcement in general, will we see it by end of year? I think we might see investigation, right? I don't think we'll necessarily see penalty. Notices have gone out, but maybe we'll get some more details on like action being taken. I'm hoping. And I was first thinking, as Price kind of said, Epic, even though we all agree they're not the most egregious info blocking actors, right? Like they have a lot of openness. They participate a lot in exchange. The impacts would be highest should it be Epic in terms of both volume as well as news, right? Like news cycle and people taking it seriously. But I agree with you, Brendan, and I think you make a good point. It's like that I think will get the most stuck and it will be hardest to prove, will take the longest amount of time. They have a huge legal team they could throw at it too. It would be great to just get one out there that shows enforcement, because I think the biggest question right now, despite notices going out, despite there being a boot camp that we went to, is like, will enforcement actually be real? And until we get that first case that, yes, something is actually happening, I think it's like kind of a wait and see. And so I think even if it's a small actor that enforcement's thrown upon, that impact will be seen, because then maybe Epic starts moving and saying, okay, we actually know it will be real and we should make moves and protect ourselves from it.
I think that's a really good point. I want to make sure that we're not seen as just a bunch of homers, right? Because we work at Epic and stuff. Like we keep saying as a matter of fact, something that probably people will have an emotional response to, which is like, we're like, oh, Epic's not the most egregious information blocker. And I think for many people, they have an emotional, anecdotal response, but our perspective is aggregate across our clients, seeing how they go in and connect to Epic through a variety of developed pathways, HL7 and APIs and things like that. And that if you follow that process in terms of joining vendor services and submitting a tech guidance form and then pushing Epic, that Epic's pretty responsive to the manner exception in the way that we see major EHRs be responsive, right? That they do engage in good faith negotiation and to identify technologies to connect and even permiss RPA or things where they don't have one. And so, I think many people just don't engage in that process and assume that, that they're being blocked or aren't able to sell and then assume that they're being blocked. If you go out and market, you see EHRs that don't have APIs, that have APIs that don't work, that don't allow you to connect because they want to sell their own products. Like that is far more common to just be outright blocked down market and, be up shit's creek because they don't have a legal team to actually understand information blocking and the manner exception. That's my take, and that's what we've seen as we've helped apps connect. But, I'm curious, do you guys agree with the statements? I'm assuming.
Even if down market, you can attribute it to Hanlon's razor, where you shouldn't attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by ignorance. It's hard to compete against Epic, and I think a lot of people imagine that Epic is info blocking when they go to sell their product to a CIO at Johns Hopkins, and he or she's like, "No, we don't want your product." That's not info blocking. That's not winning business at a massive enterprise, right? Like it's just hard to do. Or maybe you get to that point and he or she says, how are you going to integrate with us safely and securely and eloquently? And how are you going to do this without taking all of my resources for 2 months? And if you don't have an answer to that, it's like, well, tough shit. We're not going to integrate with you. That's not info blocking. That's not winning a contract, right? But on the other hand, we've paid much more to join vendor partner network for a non-Epic EHR that is much worse with regards to documentation, feature availability, support. So yeah, obviously, the four of us have biases and everyone here probably does think that we're all just, getting paid by Epic under the table. I wish I was, but I'm not.
I think I have a few on Healthy Bad Guy, a few Epic people who subscribe. So I guess I'm taking a few dollars, but far more from the rest of private industry. But yeah, like 100%. Brad, you have a thought?
Well, I have an orthogonal prediction for the summer that is going to be directly impacted by information blocking. If I'm sitting in a corp dev office, I am thinking that it is not going to get easier to buy companies next year, likely. And so I think that there's likely going to be a consolidation push. And the problem is, I don't think I'd go out and buy certified health IT right now because there's huge risk associated with it. And so I don't know what it's going to look like, but I would not be surprised if we saw a number of relatively long known names come off the table pretty quickly before we hit September, October conference season.
Are you saying that because of midterms and stuff and like
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I assume that the government's posture towards consolidation will change due to shifting congressional balance. If you're making the choice, you're like, it's more than a coin flip. Or if it's a coin flip, like, do it now, don't wait. Which I think is going to be odd given the like general economic uncertainty. But yeah, finding a poly market around consolidation of on ramps of what are some other non-certified technologies that I think we'll see.
Ambient scribes?
I think that would not be surprising. Although I would be surprised if it was ambient scribe to ambient scribe. I think, Brendan, you've probably written about this, but like we're seeing a collapsing of jobs to be done. And so if you can go pick up an E&M coding startup for really cheap and not have to build that yourself, and also potentially already have a pathway in for integration, oh yeah, you'll spend a couple $1 million.
I think it's a really good prediction, Brad, and true. What about year 2 of the CMS health tech ecosystem? We're coming up on the big launch stuff. So what do we think? Is it gonna a new round of stuff? What predictions do we have?
You know, as a friend of the ecosystem, I'm predicting a lot of friendship over the next year. I think I can see myself becoming friends with everybody in the ecosystem, and no, I don't have more serious thoughts on that. I'm excited to see like, you know, the rubber meet the road, and the CMS finally has to say these participants or pledgees are now participants. They have pledged and they have fulfilled. And then I wonder if we'll see a ton of names just drop off the list. I wonder if all of these companies' PR departments are finally like, this is fallen out of the news cycle and it's not as important for us to maintain compliance here. But as Brendan has said before, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe what matters is that the Cleveland Clinic and Epic and ECW and FlexPod and Fasten are going to show the rest of the private industry that if you want, you can have patients download their information from nationwide networks, take them to the doctor's office, and give it to the front desk person to, you know, to load some sort of FHIR payload or CDA payload straight into the EHR. And then, you know, what does any of this matter if that's written into HTI 9 or something, you know, a year from now, 2 years from now. One more thought on that front is the e-prior auth group that just started up, in my opinion, has been exciting and seen a lot of movement. I think part of that's because everyone's been tracking towards 0057 compliance. So there was like a head start on that kind of work. But it's fun to see, you know, the CMS really rally the troops without a carrot or a stick in some sense.
You guys want another prediction?
Well, before we do that, I do think, to your point, you said HTI 9. Like, I think it's HTI 6, right? We're going to see that in the second half of the year. We'll see HTI 5 finalized, and HTI 6 could wrap in the market adopted, piloted features, right? Like half of the value of CMS Health Tech ecosystem is to get market adoption and proof points for standards and data flows, right? That's a prerequisite to inclusion in SFAT and the certification program, all these processes we built up. Well, they just speed run it.
Speed ran.
They ran it,
baby.
they ran it fast, and they ran it fast, and as a result, hypothetically, anything that's in there that's market adopted and proven could be required by the ONC, and I imagine the CMS may lean on them to do so. But maybe that's where you're going, Brad, and I stole your thunder.
No, I don't know if this is going to be mandated, but Medicare Advantage plans will institute IAS and pass their gaps closure problems off to their, harkening back to a previous podcast, payvider organizations, cutting out major regional partners. We're going to see drama.
That's a spicy one. Well, we're coming up on time.
I know. Just
Ryan,
wanted to
did
make sure we
you
got that in.
Ryan, did you have any last prediction? We didn't get around to any Ryan predictions.
I think it's going to be more depth within the segments already at play rather than breadth of adding in new segments. I think prior auth is kind of an exception, but I think greater payer involvement, ACO involvement, things like that, a lot of folks would love to see. But as we've seen with like TCO, right? As soon as you go past the patient focused treatment and start going into operations or payment or things like that, things get infinitely more complicated. There's many different motivators. You don't know what's necessarily right. So I think they'll stick with the main segments they already have, but maybe go more in depth. So I still use a clipboard when I go into my doctor's office, but like more things for patient management and communication and things like that within the same segments rather than going past the segments they already have.
Solid line drive down the fairway prediction. I think that's got a high percentage on Polymarket. Well, happy 4th of July. Go get that hot dog. Stay away from the fireworks, and we'll see you soon.
Stay safe.